For too long, the divine masculine has stood at the threshold, watching, hoping, and holding space for the feminine to rise, heal, and return. He has waited with open arms, with patience, with pain. But something has shifted. The masculine is no longer lingering in limbo, seeking completion through external union. He is awakening to his own power, purpose, and sacred duty, not as a reaction to the feminine, but as a reclamation of his essence. This isn't about abandonment. It's about evolution. It's about remembering that true divine union begins within. The masculine is not walking away. He is walking forward. And this time, he's not waiting. The rise of the empowered masculine, reclaiming purpose without codependence. The divine masculine is awakening, not in response to the feminine's timeline, but in remembrance of his own. For too long, the masculine energy has been taught to wait, to hold space, to protect, to provide, and in more modern spiritual circles, to endlessly do the work while hoping the feminine catches up. But this waiting has often turned into a subtle form of codependence, one that trades strength for approval, purpose for partnership, and vision for validation. That era is ending. The empowered masculine is not abandoning love, nor is he rejecting the sacred feminine. Instead, he is releasing the illusion that his purpose is on hold until she arrives, heals, or reciprocates. He is choosing to rise, not in rebellion, but in alignment with his own inner truth, with his mission, and with the call of something greater than longing. This masculine leads without domination. He protects without control. He creates without needing to be seen. His strength is not in how much he can endure, but in how clearly he knows who he is, even when the world or the feminine does not yet understand. His purpose is no longer tied to being chosen. His worth is no longer measured by how much he gives away. He walks now, not to chase, but to fulfill what he came here to build. And in doing so, he calls the feminine, not with words, but with presence, not by waiting, but by becoming, breaking the myth of completion through union. For ages, we've been told a story, that we are not whole on our own, that we are halves wandering the world in search of our missing piece. This idea, romanticized in fairy tales, spiritual teachings, and cultural myths, has deeply shaped how the divine masculine relates to the feminine. He has been conditioned to believe that she is his purpose, his healing, his completion. That union with her is the end goal of his spiritual journey. But that myth is breaking. The awakened masculine is beginning to remember what was always true. He was never incomplete. He is realizing that his worth is not measured by his relationship status, that his mission is not contingent on someone else's readiness, and that love is not something to be earned through suffering, sacrifice, or waiting. The feminine is not his destination. She is not his cure. She is sacred, yes, but she is not his source. The masculine is no longer chasing union as a means to feel whole. He is coming home to himself, and in doing so, he's learning to love without attachment, to lead without control, and to stand without fear. This isn't a rejection of love, it's the purification of it. When the masculine no longer clings to the feminine for emotional survival, he becomes free to truly meet her from a place of wholeness, not hunger. Their connection shifts from dependency to devotion, from expectation to expansion. He no longer needs her to validate his strength, to soothe his wounds, or to carry the burden of his longing. because now he knows. He is not a half. He is a whole, and so is she. This is the foundation of sacred union, not two people completing each other, but two sovereign souls co-creating something neither could birth alone. It is not the erasure of individuality, but the honouring of it. It is not about merging to escape loneliness, but uniting to amplify purpose, passion, and truth. True union does not complete us. It reflects what is already complete within us. When we let go of the myth of completion, we finally free love from the chains of need. And in that freedom, a deeper intimacy becomes possible, one rooted in presence, clarity, and mutual respect. The masculine is done waiting to be whole. He is walking as the wholeness he always was. And from that place, he meets the feminine, not to be saved, but to stand beside her. Sacred action, the masculine choosing movement over stagnation. The divine masculine was never meant to remain still. He is the sacred force of direction, action, clarity, and purpose. He is the architect of order, the protector of boundaries, the one who forges paths forward when others are afraid to move. And yet, for too long, he has been told, explicitly and subtly, that to be spiritual, he must wait, that to be loving, he must stand down, that to be truly awakened, he must be endlessly patient, endlessly silent, endlessly holding space. But holding space can become a prison when it's no longer aligned with purpose. In the name of balance, many men, and many who embody strong masculine energy, have muted themselves. They've been taught that stepping back is noble, that waiting is virtuous, that initiating is somehow oppressive. But this extreme passivity is not balance. It is disempowerment dressed up as wisdom. It is stagnation masquerading as presence. And it keeps the masculine stuck, disconnected from his nature, his mission, and his sacred role in the evolution of consciousness. That chapter is closing. The new divine masculine is not passive. He does not wait to be told when it is safe to move. He does not linger in the background while life passes him by. He is rising now. Not to dominate, but to embody. Not to conquer, but to contribute. The masculine is remembering. His essence is not stagnation. His essence is sacred movement, not movement that comes from ego, from fear, from a need to prove worth, but movement that is rooted in truth, in vision, in devotion to something greater than himself. When the masculine awakens, he begins to recognize the cost of his delay, not just to himself, but to the world around him. Projects remain unbuilt, families remain unled, communities remain unprotected. The feminine remains unsupported in her rising because she cannot rise alone. The world needs his structure, his integrity, his anchored clarity. She needs to feel his presence, not in silent waiting, but in decisive, conscious action. This is sacred action. It's not about busyness. It's not about chasing success. It's not about doing for the sake of doing. It's about movement with meaning, about saying what needs to be said, about taking the next step without waiting for universal permission, about walking in purpose even when it's uncomfortable. It's the moment a man decides to stop shrinking himself, the moment he reclaims his voice, the moment he understands that service to the world doesn't always mean stepping aside. It often means stepping forward. Sacred action is when the masculine chooses to lead without controlling, speak without overpowering, protect without possessing, build without seeking validation. Move forward, not because he is impatient, but because he is aligned. And here's the paradox. It is only when the masculine stops waiting for the feminine that he becomes truly ready for her, because she does not rise for the man who waits for her to save him. She rises for the one who is already walking toward truth, toward purpose, toward service. In this space, love is not stagnant. It breathes, it evolves, it creates. Because the masculine is no longer idle, hoping the feminine will carry both of them into healing. He has remembered who he is, not a half waiting to be made whole, not a child waiting to be chosen, not a shell waiting to be filled, but a force of creation, a container of presence, a guardian of what matters, a mirror of the sacred. He no longer waits to feel worthy. He acts because he is worthy. And in doing so, he honors the feminine not with passivity, but with presence. Not with silence, but with truth. Not with stillness alone, but with soul-aligned movement. This is not action born of pride. It is action born of responsibility. This is sacred action, and the world is ready for it. Balancing energies. How the masculine awakens by letting go. The masculine is often seen as the energy of doing, building, protecting, and leading. His nature is focused, outward, and directed, linear, like a river cutting through stone. But what happens when that force, so praised for its strength and steadiness, becomes rigid? What happens when the masculine forgets that true power is not just in holding on, but also in knowing when and how to let go? This is the awakening many men and masculine-aligned beings are facing now. Not just the rise of sacred action, but the necessity of sacred surrender. Because if the masculine is to evolve, he must learn to release. Release control. Release certainty. Release the illusion that strength means never yielding. Release the need to always know, fix, prove, or lead. Letting go is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the realization that not every battle is his to fight, that not every moment requires a solution, that true leadership often looks like listening. That stillness can be an act of presence, not passivity. This kind of surrender is not the same as collapse or avoidance. It is conscious release. It is choosing to soften where there has been hardness, to open where there has been armor, to allow the feminine within and around him to flow, move, and express without needing to contain or define it. When the masculine lets go, he meets the feminine not as a controller, but as a co-creator. He stops gripping the steering wheel of life out of fear and begins to trust the mystery, trust the cycles, the unknown, the becoming. He starts to recognize that his real power lies not just in what he builds, but in his capacity to feel, to flow, and to allow himself to be transformed by what he cannot control. This is how energies balance, not by eliminating the masculine, not by suppressing the feminine, but by inviting the two to dance inside each of us. Because the awakening of the masculine is not just about rising into action, it is also about descending into presence, into feeling, into breath, into the parts of himself that were exiled in the pursuit of stoic strength. He begins to realize that letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means giving in to life, to love, to the deep intelligence that moves through all things when he stops resisting it. When the masculine lets go, his mind quiets, his heart softens, his body breathes, and his soul speaks. This is the return to sacred balance. He no longer defines himself by what he achieves, but by how deeply he is aligned. He is no longer driven by the fear of not being enough, but guided by the knowing that he is already whole. He no longer clings to structure at the cost of soul, but learns to let the unknown shape him. The masculine awakens not only by stepping forward, he awakens by bowing down to his own heart, to the wisdom of surrender, to the sacred feminine within, because only when he lets go can he truly rise.